Ready to rock? What's going on, Scott? How are you?
I'm good, man. Dude, thanks for doing this with me. Whenever I do webinars, I get excited because usually it's with someone that I've known for a long time and that is doing something special in the industry that's helping real estate, businesses and teams. So I feel like it's always fun to do this because we get to talk about some really great strategies that can, improve people's businesses, right? So thanks for being on, man. And like, why don't you just start by introducing yourself and we can go from there. We'll just start talking shop.
Yeah, Scott, sounds good, 100%. So thank you, first of all, so much for having me on and talking to your audience here and the people I invited. Welcome to the show here. We're going to have a good time. And yeah, what you said is right on for me. I was a real estate agent for a long time, real estate attorney first for a couple of years, and then sold real estate for a long time, owned a brokerage, ran a pretty big team, 50 plus agents. So what I want to say to every agent on here is, wherever you are in your career, like I've been there, I feel your pain, and that was always my goal, was to really solve the pain points for real estate agents. One of the things I always hated was the huge dropout rate, in real estate, because so many agents leave, and I believe real estate is the absolute best business in the world. You get to control your own schedule, you get to be your own boss, and all of this good stuff. Now, there's also the bad part of that is that you're your own boss and you get to control your own schedule, right? And
Yeah.
so, that's always been my goal, is to help real estate agents become successful. And on top of that, to help real estate agents make more money by working less, by being more efficient, and by creating the dream life that you probably wanted when you got into real estate. And that's really my goal with everything that I do. And All Star VAs is no different.
Nice, man. So before we get into the nitty gritty of like what you're doing now and how you're supporting real estate teams, I think it's important for those that are watching, or if you're watching this on replay and we put it out there, they know a little bit more of your background, like when you were in California, how you started, because that's where I knew you from. We worked together in like video marketing, we go to events together and all that. And that's, and then fast forward, we are, and you're providing an amazing service for real estate teams. So back up a little bit, just kind of give people a little bit of perspective of like what you learned as you kind of grew a real estate team in California.
Oh, sure. Yeah, definitely, Scott. So, like I said, I was a real estate attorney, and actually a pretty funny story of how I got into real estate. The partner I worked for at my real estate firm asked me to help him on a residential deal. And I said, well, I don't know how to do that. I was doing commercial leasing and things like that. And so he said, listen, real estate is the easiest thing ever. You just check the box on the contract, right? So all the realtors on our will enjoy that, right? That's what the lawyers think about us,
That's what the
right? That
lawyers
we
say. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that we don't do much. So
Yeah.
he said, listen, Danny, it's the easiest thing. I'm going to give you the contract. You fill in the boxes and you're good to go. So it was a $17 million property in Newport Beach that was the subject of the deal. And the agent was the buyer's cousin. She had just got her license. So we really did all the work. I did all the work, right? And at the end of the deal, the closing package came to our office, and my check, hourly rate was like 5,500 bucks ish, right? And her check that was in the closing package was 17 million times 2.5%. And you can do the math on that. So I walked into the partner's office and he was like, so, you did this deal. What do you think? And I said, what do I think? I said, I want that check. I don't want my check. Right. And so I got my broker's license. I got my broker's license right after that, and started a little brokerage. And then I was always into efficiency and teamwork. I grew up playing sports. I played football at the University of Arizona, and so I was like, this real estate thing is
Bear
fun.
down, baby. Bear down. I
Yeah,
forgot
you went there
about
as well,
that.
right?
Yeah, I
That's
went to
right.
U of A. Let's go. Ah,
Awesome,
this is
man.
why I
There
love
you
doing
go.
webinars. It's great.
So I was really into teamwork, and at the time, this is 20 years ago or whatever. I said, hey, I want to start a team, and the people I talked to were like, looked at me like I was crazy. Like, what are you talking about? That's not how you do real estate. You sell, you wake up, you prospect, you lead generate. I had a coach at the time, that was like, no, that's not, you can't do that. So I'm like, no, this doesn't make sense. So I started a little team. And then what happened was I did a deal with a guy that was at a brokerage, and I'm not going to say the name of the brokerage, to be fair to everyone, but he was like, "Hey, my brokerage actually promotes teams. You got to come here." So I went there and built a big team on that kind of thing, where if everyone works together, we can do more. I brought in a lot of my sports background and teamwork and all that kind of stuff. So I grew a team to, I think at top, we had about 52 agents on the team. We were doing really well there in Southern California. I really loved what I was doing. And then I got into brokerage ownership from there. And so and it was funny because when I did that, one of the top agents at the brokerage that I bought said, "Hey, Danny, what the definition of broker is?" And I said, "What?" And he said, "You get broke-er."
I love it.
Right. So he said, go back to doing a team. But I really liked, I liked mentoring. I liked coaching. I became a coach for that company and coached a lot of top agents and teams in the country. So I really enjoyed that. And I enjoyed helping agents at that point, become successful, enjoyed helping them, like I said, be more efficient with their time,
Right.
really scale their systems, and look at the numbers that matter. So like, what's interesting is like, I remember we had a super antiquated version of your dashboard that you showed me, except ours was on a whiteboard, and we had to update it every day.
Right.
And we'd go through that. And then you and I got together because we were started doing video marketing when that was, becoming a thing early on and stuff like that. And so, that kind of led me to, like I said, the brokerage. And then I actually sold those brokerages back in 2019. And then, got into more of kind of helping entrepreneurs, business owners, realtors with what we're doing now.
Nice, man. I love it. So, building a team of 52, you
Yeah.
learn exactly what you need to do to help an agent be successful, the inefficiencies, the efficiencies, the support they need, all these things,
Yeah.
right? So as you're doing that, you've taken all that learning, right, that you've made and how you've done that successfully. And in turn, here we are in 2025. Over the last few years, you've built this virtual assistant, All-Star VAs company to support real estate teams and agents. Talk to me a little bit about, that journey and and then who you're helping today. And then let's get into like the benefits of adding these types of team members, to your business.
Yeah, for sure, Scott. That's such a great thing. So most agents that I meet with, I think the number one problem or the number one challenge that most of them have is that, they don't realize that we're in a sales business, right? So
Yeah.
right there on your license, it usually says, depending on the state, but it usually says salesperson, right? Like it says it right there. But most agents,
Yeah.
most agents spend way too much time on non-income producing activities. If when I diagnose like the biggest problem for agents and I talk to agents, that's where it always falls. So we're doing stuff that we think is productive, but really it's just busy work, right?
Yeah.
And so that's probably the single biggest thing that I see with most agents. And then the other thing that we got to realize as real estate agents is that we wake up every day at zero. There is typically, unless you've set up a different type of business or you have ancillary systems, there is no recurring revenue. There is nothing that's going to pay you tomorrow for something that you did today. You got to go out and you got to do deals all the time, right? And so what happens with most agents is that they don't prioritize the stuff that's going to keep that machine turning, right?
Yeah.
And so, that kind of led me to like, listen, the first problem we got to solve is get rid of your admin work. So when we say, on kind of the lead up to the webinar, like there's three key systems, I believe, that a real estate agent has to have in order to turn this thing into a machine that generates deals and revenue for you, and you can work less, right?
Right.
Otherwise, you're tied to your phone all day, all night. That's the other thing I always, saw with agents and see today is like, you're on your phone 24/7. You feel like you got to be checking your stuff all the time. You really don't. But agents, believe that. So three key
Right.
systems, that I think agents need. Number one is an admin system, in order to handle all of the administrative work. And, it's funny, like when I talk to agents, I always ask them like, hey, do you think like, Elon Musk or pick any CEO you want, Bezos, whatever. Like, do you think they're spending 4 hours a day on admin work? Probably not, right? So you got to start thinking like
No,
a
no, they're definitely not.
so you got to start thinking like a CEO, right? So your admin system. Number two is kind of your marketing, your content, your social media, your lead gen, whatever that looks like, system. And then number three is your sales system. So whether that's a lead generation, outbound or inbound, how does all of that work? So if you can nail those three systems, and I think we now leading to the second part of your question, where we focus and help agents is, execute and implement those systems at a really high level with smart leverage, cost efficient leverage. Then you can create such an amazing business in real estate, a business that, far exceeds what you ever dreamed about.
Yeah, I love it. And when you talk about these three pieces, it's so important. And the amount of conversations I've had with the real estate agents over the last 13 years, right? One of the biggest things, of course, especially for an agent that's like, doing all the production, or they have maybe a couple agents they're working with, but it's the roller coaster effect, right? Is like they'll lead generate and get some deals, but then they have to actually handle the deals through that process. And then they're not lead generating. So it's like 1 month they're doing some business and then they're not. And then it's like back and forth. And it's just like this hamster wheel, right? And the only way to get out of that is to have administration help. And that's why, virtual assistants are amazing, right? So I
Yeah, we
love that,
call that
man.
the real estate cash flow roller coaster is what I used to call it for my
Yeah.
my coaching clients and my agents. And yeah, that's the problem. You spend all this time generating leads, and then you get some, and now you got to go service them. And so to me, there's two fundamental sides to a real estate business. Like you said, there's sales, and then there's fulfillment. And
Right.
the faster you can take yourself out of that and go from agent to CEO, so that you oversee you. And listen, you might be doing for now, but you're still in that CEO mindset. And then as you go, you can start leveraging out each part of that in the right order, so that you can then not have to do all of those things yourself. That's the
Yeah.
idea.
I love it. So let's say you've met with an ideal real estate agent or business that like could use your service. What are some of the first things that you go through and that you recommend? Maybe like, if I'm watching this right now, I want to know what are like, I want to identify with the things that I'm probably doing that I shouldn't be doing. Let's talk through some of those initial things. And you mentioned, getting out of the fulfillment part of it. Let's talk through like what you recommend and how you go through that process a little bit initially to get someone started to stepping out of that phase of it.
Yeah, Scott, great question. So, number one recommended hire for me is always going to be an admin person. And, the first book I read when I got into real estate was Millionaire Real Estate Agent, right, by Gary Keller. And he
Yeah.
recommended that 25 years ago. Your first hire should be admin help. And when I say admin help, what we want to do is we want to get rid of kind of all of the administration work that you do. So we're talking about calendar management, confirming appointments, rescheduling appointments. Then we're talking about email management. Like agents spend so much time in their email, and most of it is just wasted. Now there's awesome AI you can plug into that as well. So what the AI does is it actually helps your administrative or your executive assistant become way more efficient. Where they had to spend maybe 2 hours sorting email in the morning, that's like a 5-minute job with a great AI software. So we're talking about email management, calendar management, voicemails, all of your appointments, all of your kind of incoming admin stuff, and all of those things. And Scott, what we have found, we've surveyed our clients, when they hire a really good executive administrative assistant, they're going to save about 20 hours a week of admin. I mean, like think
That's
about,
so much time, dude.
yeah, it's crazy. There was a study done a long
Don't
time
go
ago.
golf though. Don't go golf.
Yeah, well,
You
no,
still
you
have to.
can't.
You'd say
No, you can
maybe.
golf. That
Yeah,
Yeah, you
yeah.
can golf because you're going to get clients on the golf course. That's money
No,
making
yeah, yeah, yeah.
activity,
I
baby.
like. I like it. I like it.
No, but there was this study done that said that real estate agents, when they're doing money making activities, you're making like 500 to $1,000 or more an hour, depending on the market you're in. So think about like if you could get back, buy back 20 hours of your time. Great book I recommend for everyone is Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. It's an
Hmm.
awesome book. We actually base a lot of our stuff on that. And so if you get 20 hours back at $500, think about that. You're earning another, 10K a week because you're spending that on money making activities or having more fun and going golfing.
Yeah,
So, it's a huge, huge thing.
yeah. I love that, man. That's huge. So the front end part. the like the admin supports that all that front end stuff that you just mentioned, and then what's the next like layer, like what's the next thing that you're getting kind of off of your plate administration wise?
Yeah. So, I mean, once you get all the kind of the admin stuff, out of there, and we have a whole, the cool thing about what we do is we have standard operating procedures. We have a game plan and systems for all of this. So, I'll tell you one of the big mistakes that people make when they hire. And I did this many times when I hired, right? You go out and you hire an administrative assistant and you create this top down relationship, right? Where let's say I hire, Jennifer, and I go, okay, Jennifer, come on in. I'm going to tell you what to do every day. And I'm going to do, you're going to do exactly what I say. That creates a top down management style where you are the bottleneck. So the other issue I see for real estate agents is every system they create, they're still the bottleneck. And if you do that, what happens is you're never going to have true freedom, right?
Yeah.
Because they're always going to just rely on you to tell them what to do. You definitely don't want that. So what we do is we implement systems where the people you hire are actually driving the ship, and they're the ones that are figuring out, okay, here's what needs to be done, right? And so on the admin side, they're going to drive all of that stuff for you so that you don't have to worry about any of those things, and you can move on to the next phase, which is really kind of the your marketing, and then some lead gen stuff or content driven social media marketing, email marketing, to bring in the leads for your business and drive that engine.
So what about and we'll talk more about the hiring because I feel like that's where people mess
Yeah.
up the most, right? And that for like
Yes.
90 days it's blow it and they think the assistant isn't doing a good job. And the reality is it's a reflection of they don't know how to train the person right properly most of the time. But let's talk about I know like when agent gets a deal and there's a 15,000 commission on the line and you got to like not be too involved during the time you get that agreement to close.
Yep.
What's that look like, as far as how you get the support there? Do you recommend that the assistants are handling the whole transaction management portion, or do you use a third party? Like, what's that? What do you recommend when you're working with a team and they're trying to leverage out of that part of it too?
Yeah, 100%. So on the transaction management or transaction coordination side, I typically recommend until you get to a certain deal volume, use a TC, right? A full service TC, which is transaction coordinator. And the reason that is such a high leverage position is typically you're going to pay for that at closing. There's no overhead to you. There's no upfront cost. They're going to handle all the paperwork that you shouldn't be doing. They're going to save you a ton of time and a ton of money. And so that allows you to then do the money making stuff. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, Scott, the only thing that an agent should be doing during a transaction is any negotiations that are happening and then any advice that they need to give their client around those negotiations, right?
Yeah.
Agents make such a huge deal about all of this. My client only wants to talk to me. My client only wants me. That's all nonsense, right? Your client wants a result. They want to buy a house. They don't care if it's you or me or Patricia or Scott. Honestly, they don't care, right? They just want
Yeah.
to buy the house. And so agents make themselves feel way more important than they really are in that thing. And so grab a great TC, and then once you get to a certain deal volume, you can bring that in house with a virtual assistant that'll handle all those deals for you and do all that transaction management again to free you up to do the money making activities. I mean, the money we've talked about, Scott, the money making activities. Let me just tell you what they are. In real
Yeah.
estate, the biggest money making activity you can do are the buyer and seller appointments, right? Like that's it. Consultation appointments,
Yeah.
negotiating deals, right? And I would say generating business, talking to your sphere of influence, your database, however you generate leads. But the reality is you can actually have staff do that as well for you these days. But those appointments, that's the key. And to your to back to the dashboard, Scott, and the data,
Yeah.
the one key metric, that we tracked was appointments, because I know that if I know how many appointments an agent goes on in a year, I can tell you how much money they're going to make. Like it's a numbers game through and through, and the number of appointments you go on will drive everything else.
Yeah, I mean, and it goes back to like being a salesperson, right? Ultimately, like the way that you maximize, whether you're the one doing the appointments or another agent, is having them in more appointments, right? And not doing other stuff,
Yeah.
and then ideally they're someone else is lead generating and calling and scheduling those appointments. And then your salespeople are just showing up to those appointments and closing deals.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's it. We have a client, he does over 100 deals in a market where he doesn't even live. And all he does is Zoom consultations. That's it. So he's got leads coming in through his content machine marketing system, which I can show you actually if you want me to share my screen later. But he's got
Sure.
leads coming in. He jumps on the buyer and seller consults, gets the agreement signed, and then his team takes over from there to do showings or listings or open houses. That's literally all he does. Over 100 deals in a market where he doesn't live, right? So that,
Yeah, it's wild.
it's really interesting how, people have set up really cool businesses with that.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
So everyone that's watching right now too, there is like open, Q&A. If you have questions for Danny, please feel free to drop them, and we'll get to them in a timely manner. But I was gonna jump back, Danny, to like the hiring process, and maybe tell us,
Yeah.
people I identify with stories. Tell us a little bit of maybe a story about someone that you started working with that was in this way of doing business, and you're able to help them hire and go through the process with you and see a change.
Yeah, we've helped so many real estate professionals. And Scott, do we have just realtors on, or are there also? I'm curious. Are there also lenders on? Anyone else in the real estate industry too? I don't know if you have a question that we've asked them just to see like what people are doing and what side of
That's
the business they're on.
Yeah, it's a good thing. I don't know. Patricia, can you maybe put a poll in there?
Yeah, let's see who's and the
Yeah.
reason this is the reason that this is interesting for me is a recent client of mine is a lender, but you can actually apply this directly to a real estate agent. I can talk about real estate agents too, but I have a lender who just came to me, and we actually hired. What he was doing was he was doing lunch and learns. That was one of his primary sources of business.
Yeah.
And I was like, how many people you get at your lunch and learns? He's like, I don't know, 5 people, 7 people, right? So what we did is we actually staffed an inside salesperson on his team that makes phone calls, texts, and emails to fill up the room for his lunch and learns. And so he stopped doing that entirely. And that inside salesperson, now he's averaging 40 to 50 people at each lunch and learn. So like think about
Wow.
10x the number of realtors at his lunch and learns, which means he's now generating 10x the number of business without doing all of that work, right? So that's one example on the lending side. On the real estate side, man, I have so many. A great one on content because I love YouTube. And if the agent's actually listening to this, if you have a YouTube channel or you want to create a YouTube channel, you should throw that in the comments, because I have a great client of mine. I'll share an awesome story with you. His name is Ray Fernandez. He's out in Palm Beach. You can look up his YouTube channel, or I can share my screen and show you. But 2 years ago, he wanted to start a YouTube channel. Now, Scott, if you know anything about YouTube, what happens to most people who want to start a YouTube channel?
I don't know. That just sounds crazy to me that you want to start. Like it should be something that just happens. I don't know.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
for me,
they
my
quit.
brain, when someone says they want to start a YouTube channel, I go, "What do you like? What does that even mean? What do you mean?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Well, for real estate,
Yeah,
for real estate agents, it is a great lead generation source. The problem is most
totally.
agents quit, right? Because it's so much work. You got to film the videos, you got to edit them, you got to publish them, and most agents are just like they throw their hands up in the air, right?
Yeah, well, also you have to
Um,
brand it correctly. You need to be tagging it correctly. You need to have keywords in for like if you're trying to attract someone that's in a community, you need to have community keywords, you have neighborhood keywords, you have to have all this stuff, and it's way too much. Like I would
exactly,
never
yeah.
even do it. I don't. I have, I obviously have virtual assistants,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
of
It's
course.
it's it's too
It's a
much.
lot. Yeah.
And so Ray in Palm Beach, he started this YouTube channel with a virtual assistant. So all he does, and then he added a second part-time one. And so all he does is go out and film the videos, but the virtual assistants actually do all that stuff that you just talked about: market research, what videos to film, editing, uploading, all that kind of stuff. And in the last 12 months, he's done $21 million in volume directly from his YouTube channel. So if you do the math, that's like $600,000 in commission. And his expense on that, for two VAs, you can call that maybe 2,000 a month, something like that, right? So that's a heck of a return. And he's now the local celebrity in that area. But the key is that he didn't have to do it. And when he tried to do it on his own before, it didn't work. And so, that's a great example on the content side, that I'll share with you. I have another agent that wanted to get listings, and his big problem was he just didn't know how to get listings in an area, right? And it was a high-end luxury area, Northern California. So what we did there is we implemented something that we call the content machine. So in his case, what we came up with, and we didn't make it up, came from someone else that we liked, is delivering home equity reports to sellers, right? So what he does is his inside salesperson actually calls in the neighborhoods where he wants to be and offers a free home equity report. Super easy script, right? Hey, Joe, this is Danny calling from Scott Sillari's office. Scott's going to be in the area. He's actually meeting with another seller. He's going to be in the area tomorrow dropping off home equity reports for people who are interested. Would you like to know, how much equity you have in your investment? Boom, right? Scott will be there tomorrow. So
Great.
An average inside salesperson is going to make about $150 a day, going to talk to, let's say, 20, 30 people. You're going to have, 5 appointments, let's say tomorrow, to go drop off home equity reports in an area. How awesome is that for an agent, right? Now you have money-making activities you can go do. So those are some great examples of stuff that we've done recently.
That's awesome. So I love the fact that, like, not only are you helping getting these, these employees or assistants in place, but you're also like building strategy around like what they're going to do, which is really, I feel like that's next level,
Yeah, that's where, and Scott, that's where most people fail, right? Like I said, is they hire someone, it creates this top-down thing, and then, I hear this all the time. Well, what am I going to have my VA do, right? What am I going to have them do? I don't have 40 hours to fill up, and I'm like, well, don't worry about that. Like, we'll create the system for you based on your goal. Like, what is your goal, and how do we reverse engineer that?
Right. I love it, man. So, what are some of the pitfalls you see? And we are doing a poll. It's mostly real estate. There's virtual assistants on. There's admin operations managers on. So you can see that there's some people that are interested in what you're doing here.
Awesome.
Talk to me a little bit about some of the pitfalls during like hiring in the first 90-day window, basically, because I feel like that's where a lot of this stuff. A lot of people that try to do this through other companies or on their own, that's where it falls apart.
Yeah, for sure. Scott, I'll tell you, and these are pitfalls that I made when I was running a team and hiring, right? The number one, oh, there we go. See the poll. Awesome. Okay, so we got Realtors. Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
So I will tell you, Scott, the number one pitfall is when you try to hire yourself, you are not seeing enough candidates. So, and I'll tell you a story about this. You told me you like stories. I'll give you a bunch of them.
I love stories.
So when I was at Keller Williams, I was in Gary Keller's Top 100 Agent Mastermind Group, and we used to go there every quarter to Austin and meet with Gary. It was a lot of fun. And I remember one time he said, "Hey, who's having a challenge right now? Raise your hand." So I raised my hand. I said, I've hired 3 executive assistants in the last 6 months, and they all stink, right? And I can't get a good one. It's driving me crazy. And he said, "Okay, the last hire, how many people did you interview?" And I thought I was like doing a great job. I'm like, I interviewed 5 people. Like, I had all these resumes. I interviewed 5. And he was like, "Hey, call me when you've interviewed 50, right? Because you're just not seeing enough candidates." And so that's the biggest issue. If you go to hire yourself, what happens is now you're becoming a recruiter. Well, that's not what you got into real estate to do. You're not an expert at matching the disc profile or any personality profile test to the position. And so you're just not seeing enough people to be able to pick someone good. I mean, I always, sports guy, obviously, like look at the NFL. I mean, those guys are spending millions of dollars and they get it wrong like half the time in the first round of the draft, right? And yet we as real estate agents, we interview someone. "Oh, I like you, you like me, we could be buddies, let me hire you," right? And that is just the absolute wrong thing. And so, for example, we're seeing thousands of resumes at our company every single month. And so we're matching, we do personality assessment on each candidate. We're matching the personality assessment to the role. We're creating a standard operating procedure for the role. And then on top of that, we're in the interviews with you to make sure that you don't just hire someone because you like them or because they look good on camera, you know?
Yeah.
So
Which is,
that's the biggest pitfall.
yeah, which is huge, man. I mean, because if you think about like, even for me, I'm wearing a bunch of hats running this business. It's like, I can't imagine like a real estate agent as well. Like you don't have the bandwidth to put systems in place to like generate hundreds of candidates, narrow that down, interview however many to hire. You know what I mean? You're just not going to do it. It's not going to be done properly. Like it's not happening.
Exactly.
It's not happening.
Exactly.
You're just going to
Yeah.
hire the person that you think is, oh, they have a nice person. Oh, it's the whole iceberg, analogy,
Yeah,
right?
and
Like,
I see it all the time. Yeah, I
yeah,
see that all the time. It's always a mismatch because we're not experts at hiring. I mean, we just aren't. We're not experts at hiring or creating systems or leading people. I mean, that's not why we got into real estate at
right.
all. For most people, 90%. I mean, maybe there's someone that came from a human resources background or something like that, but that is the biggest problem. And then you end up with a mismatched team, and then, like you said, when we open, you blame it on the people you hired, right? Oh, they're a bad hire, they're a bad fit, but then, when I dive in, like you didn't onboard them properly, they weren't a fit to begin with. You didn't set clear expectations for the role and all these kinds of things. And so those are some of the other pitfalls. And so that's where, when we started doing this is where I really honed in, especially with real estate agents, on let's just help you do this. Let's co-manage with you to make sure you get the right hire so you get an ROI from that position.
Yeah, that's awesome. And like, for me, it's hiring some, virtual assistants. I have a recruiter in the Philippines. Been one of the most fulfilling things because I know not only has it affected our business positively, but in turn, it's affected these people's lives. They've been able to work with our company and talk to me a little bit about where you're hiring, like where you're recruiting your virtual assistants, where are they coming from and like what's that process like a little bit?
Yeah, Scott. So we, it's a quick story for you again. We actually fell into this kind of accidentally when I owned brokerages. This was about 6 years ago. I had a situation where three of our employees did something they shouldn't have done, and we had to let go of three people at the same time, three admin people. And my wife was my operations manager on my team at the time. And I said, okay, what do we do now? And she hired a virtual assistant from the Philippines, totally by accident, saw an ad, hired her. Turned out to be great. She still works with us 6 years later. But
Ah, that's
within
so
like,
cool.
yeah, it was awesome. But within like 3 months, we had replaced all of our local staff, other than people that really had to be there, with employees from the Philippines. And to your point, like, we love working together. The culture's great. They really love what we're doing. They're appreciative. I have two of my VAs actually on the call. So I have my executive assistant here, Charlene, and I actually have my social media manager, Amelia. And so Amelia has been with us for about, I think, over 3 years now, maybe four. Amelia will correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and so it's just an awesome relationship. So we recruit exclusively from the Philippines. We found that they understand our industries, they have a background in it, they speak great English, the communication is really good. And so, we have a really, really great working relationship with our assistants in the Philippines there.
Yeah, it's awesome. And what people forget, I feel like, you know, a lot of Filipinos now have been working in the American real estate business for a decade, if
Yeah.
not more, because a lot of them started, they have so much experience now too, which is it's another thing that I think a lot of people forget, is the amount of experience that some of these employees could have in working in the space and understanding it, which is awesome. And then I have on Patricia, who's been with me for almost over 3 years, maybe four.
Yeah.
And she's an absolute rock star. Me and Danny just showed up today, and everything else was done by Patricia. So Patricia's the best. But yeah, I mean, best hire. When it comes to having a marketing director, it's unbelievable. She's amazing, and yeah, it's I can't imagine running a business without having administrative assistance. So talk to me a little bit. I know that we talked a little bit, and please, if you have questions, the Q&A is open. Feel free to drop in a question for Danny because He's definitely got the answers for you. I know that one of the things we talk about is your model for how you charge is different. And I love that because I don't like some of the ways that other companies do it, to be honest with you, and that's why I went out and fortunately I had a connection from way back that turned into a recruiter, and she's over in the Philippines and has her own company and recruits for us. And we have a great situation with her. But a lot of these other companies don't do it the way that, and we've talked about this before, right? So I think it's something worth talking about.
Yeah, Scott, for sure, and that's great that that situation is working out. So basically, if you are thinking that you want to scale and add leverage with virtual assistants, you kind of have three choices. The first one is you could do it yourself, and you can go on. There's a bunch of websites. I can send them to you, and you can start looking at resumes. And like we said earlier, the pitfalls there are you're not going to see enough candidates. You now become a recruiter, and you don't have the systems to make it happen. To be honest with you, finding a virtual assistant is not the challenging part. The challenging part is making sure you're getting a return on investment, making sure that you're setting the systems up properly so that you don't just get more work, right? Because you're trying to do this to buy back your time. And a lot of times I see frustrated real estate agents that have hired people and now they're just working more. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
that wasn't the point, dude, right? Like,
No.
so so that's doing it yourself. A lot of pitfalls there. I will say doing it yourself is great if you just have a really short project. Yeah, I need a logo. I need that. Fine, go on Fiverr and find someone to make your logo. That's the first way. The second way is kind of what you're talking about, which is a traditional agency model. The way those companies work, and we worked with them in the past, is that they charge you a flat fee. Right now, the going rate's somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,700 to $2,000 a month. Which the pitch is like, hey, if you go hire someone locally, that's going to cost you 4 or 5. We're saving you 50%, right? Which sounds great in theory. However, what happens is those companies actually hire the virtual assistants and they become their employees. So you don't control your workforce. You typically don't control all the tasks. Everything has to go through the company. But the biggest problem is that, look, if you hire one virtual assistant and he or she is unbelievable, what are you going to want to do? You're going to want to hire more, right?
Yeah.
When you start scaling with the traditional agency, let's say it's, you're paying $1,700 a month. Now for 2, you're paying $3,400. For 3, you're paying another $1,700. So that company is earning that markup every single time. They're making a majority of the wages. They're looking for the cheapest virtual assistants. I hate to say it this way because they make money on the spread, right? So if they charge you $1,700, they pay the VA, let's say $600, they make $1,100. But what if they can find a VA for $400? Now they're making more, right? So to me, that's a very unfair model to everyone. It's not transparent. I never liked that model. So our model is completely different. So with our model, we want to empower you to create the system and the business for you, right? So we're very transparent in our pricing. So you pay us for what we do, which is staffing, coaching, consulting, setting up the systems, co-managing with you, and all of that good stuff. So just as an example, for one VA, you're going to pay us $600 a month, and we have discounts for paying for the year in full. For 2 to 5 VAs, you're going to pay us $900. So for $300 more, you can have up to 5 virtual assistants on your team, which drives the price per VA down. But here's the best part. We set up that virtual assistant in your business, and you're the boss, and they're your independent contractor. So you pay them directly. We help you negotiate the rate. We help you set up the contracts and all that stuff. But it's very transparent. You know what you're paying each VA. You know what you're paying us. Your cost ends up being 50 to 60% cheaper than the traditional agency model, and you get way more value and benefits.
Yeah, I love it. It's so transparent, right?
Yeah.
Because the other model is the company is not really acting as a fiduciary for you,
Right. Yeah.
And so I love this. It's such a great model, and you don't get penalized for scaling. And it's just, and again, just the transparency of it. It's that says all of it right there. So Danny, what are the things that we haven't talked about that we should be talking about that maybe I didn't ask you or we didn't get to? And again, if you have questions, please, we're probably going to be on for a little bit longer, but ask some questions now if you have them.
Scott, what I would just say is that I encourage all realtors to really like take some time and write down a couple things like why did you get into real estate in the first place? A lot of people got into real estate for these awesome goals and these awesome dreams. They wanted, I know why I got in. I was an attorney and I was trading time for money, right? And so a lot of us got into the business because we wanted freedom. We didn't want to trade time for money. We didn't want a traditional job, and we wanted to be able to go to our kids' soccer games and go on vacation all the time and all this kind of stuff. And then I just want you to ask yourself, like, are you getting that with your business right now? Are you where you want to be? And if you're not, a lot of times it's not really your fault. The industry was not set up for agents to succeed. The industry, it's antiquated for the most part, and most agents just don't have the tools and the systems to be successful. And so, find a great coach, find a great mentor, partner with a company like ours, partner with your company, Scott, so that you can have real-time data at your fingertips so that you know what metrics you need to be driving. That's the other thing. We didn't talk about this on the call, Scott, but most agents, they don't understand the metrics that are going to drive their business. I talked about
Yeah.
appointments, but there's a bunch of other metrics that you should be looking at every day. I mean, think about, I hate to always bring sports in because there's probably people that aren't sports fans, but think about if you went to like a basketball game and there was no scoreboard. That would be a pretty crappy game, right?
Yeah, yeah. Everyone's trying to keep track in their head. Oh, so that's
you'd
terrible.
probably you'd leave. You'd be like, well, what's going on, right? So it's the same thing with realtors, though. Like, so many realtors I talk to, and I'll be like, hey, let me ask you a question. Like, how many listing appointments have you gone on this year? And the typical answer is, I don't know, right? And so if you don't know your numbers, there's
Yeah.
just no way like you can actually create a business that makes sense. So, but again, it's not your fault because maybe you weren't taught that, because we're not taught that kind of stuff. So, get a coach, get a good mentor, partner with great companies like Scott's so that you know your numbers, whether they're good or bad. As long as you have a starting point, you can improve. And then, obviously kind of self-promoting, but, partner with a company like ours so that we can help you install those systems and help you scale without you doing everything. The goal is make more money, work less, and have more fun. And it's doable. Like, people are doing this. You can model these systems. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Like I say it every day to everyone. Like, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. I'll give you my super quick my content example. So we didn't. This is one thing we didn't talk about is like social media, right? I
Yeah.
have agents all the time telling me I don't know what to do on social media. And what I tell them is the way we do our social media system is I just ask them, hey, give me 5 accounts on Instagram that you follow that you like. They give us the 5 accounts. We have a social media manager use AI to find the top posts of those accounts and then recreate them for you and your brand, write up all the content and go, okay, Scott, film these, 5 30-second clips for me. I'll create the reels for you as the social media manager. We'll publish them and you're off and running. And now you've created a brand without you actually doing all that work, right? So
Yeah, I
you
love it.
can you can you can make all this happen for yourself in a very cost effective way, one step at a time. But you're here, which is great. Align yourself with awesome people. Don't forget about that end result that you got into real estate to get to, and then let's just reverse engineer to get you exactly where you want to go.
Yeah, man. I love it. And when I think about like when we step back, think about everything we talked about today, it's like get yourself an assistant, leverage yourself so you can focus on the sales work and generating more leads and being on more appointments. And then, like they mentioned, you can, track all this with RealSync business intelligence solution so that you actually can pull the right levers. You know which leads are working, how many appointments you're setting, if you have to up your communication, all those things we track for you. So um, all of a sudden you start creating a business, right, Danny? And you're not just in this revolving hamster wheel like we talked about.
Exactly,
Yeah.
100%.
Well, for those that stayed on and watched with us, thank you so much. And we'll be sending this out so you can watch the replay. Danny, thank you so much for your time. And where should they go to book a consult with you or your team?
Yeah, Scott, thanks so much, man. I really appreciate it. This has been awesome for us. You just go to allstarvas.com, ALLSTARVAS.com, and there's a calendar link on there. You can book a free consultation. We'll actually do a business audit. So we'll go in. It's not a sales call. It really is a business audit. We'll go in. We'll take a look at what's going on in your business, where the holes are, what's keeping you up at night, what you're missing, and then we'll prepare a complete plan of action for you, and you can take it one step at a time, as quickly or as slow as you want to go to really get to where you want to go in your business.
Nice. I love it, man. Well, thanks everyone. Thank you, Danny. I appreciate your time. Have a wonderful Wednesday, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks so much, Scott. Thanks everyone for being on here.